The millionaire is shocked to see the pregnant female beggar and decides to change her fate. James walked briskly through the cold New York streets, the gala fading behind him like a distant dream. His tailored suit hugged his broad frame, and the city lights bounced off his polished shoes. Everything in his life was perfectly ordered. Board meetings, luxury cars, high-rise apartments. Yet tonight, something gnawed at his chest, a quiet emptiness he couldn't shake. Then she appeared, Anna, a young woman sitting on the filthy sidewalk, her worn coat barely covering a round belly. She wrapped her trembling hands around a cracked paper cup, eyes wide and desperate. Her voice, cracking with fatigue and hunger, cut through the evening's noise like a sharp knife. "Please, can you help me? I don't know where to go." He stopped dead. The roar of the city hushed for a heartbeat. Something primal pulled at him, a knot tightening in his throat, a sudden heat in his chest. His hand, around them, people shuffled past, indifferent or suspicious. A businessman sneered and whispered, "Why's he stopped for her? This city's full of parasites." A couple hurried by, clutching their coats, eyes darting as if afraid their luck might catch the same cold. But James couldn't move. Her clothes were ragged, soaked with grimy snowmelt. Her face, pale and streaked with dirt, held a haunting mixture of fear and fierce determination. She barely looked like someone who belonged anywhere. Not here, not in his world of marble floors and champagne glasses. "You're pregnant," he said without thinking. His voice was raw. Anna's eyes flickered, almost startled. "Yes," she whispered, "but no one cares. I'm just invisible." Invisible. That word hammered through him. The polished bubble of his life suddenly felt like a cage. The city sounded again, the distant honk, the chatter, the footsteps on wet pavement. But inside James, quiet chaos exploded. His mind flashed to his own childhood, moments he'd buried deep. A lonely boy in a cold house, dreams crushed by silence, a father's shadow gone too soon. "I'll help you," he said fast, surprising even himself. People glanced over, suspicion mixing with curiosity. His business partner's voice echoed in his mind, sharp and biting. "You're chasing ghosts, James. This isn't good business." Yet here he was, slipping off his expensive coat to cover her shivering shoulders. That night, as they walked toward a roadside diner, Anna told fragments of her story. Fights with cold landlords, nights spent on harsh sidewalks, hopes fading like the city lights at dawn. James painted a different picture for her, one where food and doctors were not just distant dreams, but real things they could reach. But just a link revealed itself quietly. Between Anna's hidden story and James' own family history, a twisted knot he'd never suspected. It echoed in his mind like a sharp crack in a flawless mirror. Was his whole life built on lies? Could he still be the man he thought he was? The city's chill bit deeper now, but James felt something hotter bursting inside him. A mix of fear, hope, and a fierce need to uncover the truth. What would this mean for them both? The night held its breath. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? The night held its breath, but a tension crackled in the air. James felt the weight of uncertainty, the kind of weight that sinks deep into your bones. Anna glanced up at him, her eyes flickering with fragile hope. But a whisper punctured the moment, and urgency danced on the edges of his thoughts. They entered the diner, the warm light spilling over them like a cocoon. The scent of coffee filled the space, grounding and inviting. As they slid into a booth, Anna's shoulders seemed to relax just a bit. For a fleeting moment, he felt the world outside drift away. The city drowned in a muted hum, as if the diner was a world of its own. But then, the door swung open, spilling light and shadow into the room. A man strode in, his presence as heavy as an approaching storm. The clink of spoons and forks quieted. His hard eyes scanned the diner, locking in on Anna. James felt his heart thud. A surge of protectiveness twisted in his gut. "Anna," he said, voice low but ironclad. "We need, now." She tensed, her fingers gripping the table like it was the only solid ground left. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "Please, don't." The man's face darkened. "I've been looking for you. You can't run away from this. You know that." Everything inside James roared. "Who are you?" he said, his throat tight with rage. "What do you want from her?" The guy smirked, a twisted satisfaction lurking beneath his words. "Let's just say I have a stake in this situation. You all are connected more than you think." "What does that mean?" James pressed, impatience brimming. He glanced at Anna. Her eyes darted between them, panic flooding her features. Suddenly, it hit him. Reality struck like a hammer. "Your past, Anna. What are you hiding?" The pieces began to fall in place, a mosaic of truths he never wanted to see. It felt like the ground shook beneath him. A memory, long buried, forced its way back. A family story whispered in shadows, a name he thought was a ghost. "What's your last name?" he asked, his heart racing. "Carter," she breathed, and it fell like an anvil, heavy and unsettling. James froze. The chill of understanding swept over him. Anna Carter, the daughter of a disgraced businessman, his father's rival. The legacy of deceit twisted tightly around them, weaving a story of betrayal and fear. The man standing there wasn't just anyone. He was part of the past James thought he'd escaped. "Do you see it now?" the man said, a cruel grin spreading. "You're both tangled in the same web. You didn't just stumble into her life, James. This is fate." A murmur rippled through the diner. Eyes flickered, patrons leaning closer, hungry for drama. James felt hot blood pulse in his ears. "You're lying," he said, voice trembling with a mix of outrage and disbelief. "This can't be." But Anna, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks, stood up, her face a tempest of raw emotion. "It's true, James," she cried, her voice breaking. "I tried to get away. I never wanted this life." A collective gasp arose. The walls pressed in like a cage. The truth had become a monster, looming over them. James took a step back. The air felt heavy, thick, like the space between them was a chasm. He wanted to reach out, pull her close, but doubt clawed at him, tearing through the fragile connection they'd begun to build. The man took a step forward, drawing breath. "This isn't over," he said, voice low and dangerous. "You're part of something much bigger, and you can't escape it." As he turned to leave, the diner regained its bustle, but the weight lingered, thick and suffocating. James's mind raced. How deep did this run? What truth would they uncover together? And just like that, hope and despair danced in a dizzying waltz, leaving James breathless and lost. What had he truly walked into? The night held more than shadows. It held secrets that could destroy everything he thought he knew. And as Anna looked at him, something shattered between them, leaving a terrifying question lingering in the air. Could they fight the past, or were they simply victims of it? James stood frozen, the weight of Anna's revelation heavy in the air. The diner buzzed around them, but he felt suspended in an unsettling silence. She was Anna Carter, the daughter of a name that haunted his past. The man lurking in the shadows had cast a dark specter over their lives. But why? "James, please, it's complicated," Anna pleaded, her voice trembling. Tears glistened in her eyes, and for a moment the fierce determination melted away, leaving only a fragile girl standing before him. "No," he said, shaking his head as anger and confusion churned in his gut. "No more secrets. You have to tell me everything, right now." Before Anna could respond, the door swung open. Her eyes were wide with panic, and she glanced around, locking eyes with the man across the room. He stiffened. Recognition flashed across his face. "Jack," she said, voice sharp, "we need to go, now." The man's attention snapped from Anna to the woman, and tension crackled. "Not now, Mary. This doesn't concern you." "It concerns all of us," she shot back, urgency lacing her tone. "You think you can just waltz in here and—" The diner held its breath, the stillness heavy with expectation. Anna's eyes flitted between the two. James could barely process it all. Who was this woman? What did she know? "Why are you here?" Jack pressed, his voice low and menacing. "I've got information you need to hear. About Anna. About the past." James felt the chill seep through his skin. The word information held too much weight, too many implications. It was like a string pulling tighter, threatening to snap at any moment. "Get out," Jack hissed, his tone laced with a warning. "I'll deal with this." "No," the woman cried. "You don't understand. She's in danger. You all are." At those words, time stopped again, twisting into something unimaginable. The shadows clung tighter, and James felt his pulse quicken. "Danger?" he echoed, heart pounding in his chest. "What do you mean?" "Listen to me," Mary continued, moving closer to Anna, her gaze steady. "They're coming for you, your family. It's deeper than you think." She turned to James, her voice shaking slightly. "And James, your father, he's involved." A knife twisted in James's gut. "No, that's not, it can't be." The room blurred. His whole life, every foundation he thought was solid, cracked under the weight of her words. "Your father has hidden things, dark things." "I thought I could protect you, Anna, but it's too late," Mary said, stepping closer until the air between them felt electric. "He's made enemies, and those enemies want what's yours." James gripped the table, heart racing. "What's ours?" he sputtered, clenching his jaw. "What are you saying?" "I'm talking about your inheritance," Mary continued, voice barely a whisper now. "You were meant to inherit everything. Your father's empire, the secrets, it all leads back to Anna." The room spiraled. Every eye in the diner turned to them, watching, waiting for the storm to break. Anna's face reflected confusion, fear, and realization all at once. "But I'm nothing," she said, voice cracking. "No," Jack interjected, frustration palpable. "You are everything." A truth cloaked in shadows unraveled, pulling at the threads of James's life until the fabric of his identity frayed. Everything he thought he knew slipped through his fingers like sand. "This can't be happening," he whispered, looking between Anna and Mary, their faces etched in uncertainty. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the kitchen door, and before anyone could react, a group of men stormed in. Eyes fierce and hungry, heavy jackets and dark hats framed their faces, pulling heavy tension into the room. "Get her!" one shouted. "Run!" James shouted instinctively, adrenaline surging as people gasped. Anna grabbed his hand tight, but confusion pooled in his mind. He had wanted to save her. But from what? And what was real? With chaos erupting around them, the diner turned into a battlefield. James felt panic rising, like a tide crashing over him. There was no certainty now, just urgency and fear. Could they even survive the truth that had shattered their worlds? The mind spun in confusion, and all around echoed the deafening sound of their lives cracking apart. How deep did this go? What had he stepped into? And as they bolted for the door, shadows pursued them, leaving only a haunting question lingering behind. What secret tied them together, pulling them into a darkness neither could escape. As James and Anna bolted for the door, the clamor of chaos erupted behind them. They crashed into the cold night air, hearts racing, breaths mingling in frosty puffs. Panic surged, adrenaline electrified the silence as they darted into the dimly lit street. "Where do we go?" Anna panted, gripping his hand. Her fingers felt icy, like they were holding onto a lifeline. "Anywhere but here," James replied. Each footfall echoed their heartbeats. The sounds of the diner faded, but the oppressive weight of their secrets followed them like a shadow. Suddenly, a deafening crash shattered the night. The glass door of the diner exploded outward, sending shards flying. James turned just in time to see Jack shoved out of the way, a group of men flooding onto the street, their intentions dark. "Split up!" Jack shouted, urgency cracking his voice. He glanced at James and Anna, fear tangling with regret. "Go, I'll hold them off." "No!" James protested, panic rising. "We can't leave you." But Jack didn't give them a choice. He pushed them away, his expression steely, the fire of determination blazing in his eyes. "Just run!" They sprinted, desperate, but a weight settled in James's gut. Who was Jack really? And what was he hiding? They turned the corner, the world swirling around them. Bright city lights blurred as fear thrumming in their veins kept pace with their hurried steps. "Why was he looking for you?" James asked, breaths coming fast. "What did you do?" Anna's face twisted, torn between panic and anguish. "I didn't do anything, I promise. It's about my father and his enemies." "I thought I could leave it all behind." James felt a chill creep up his spine. "Enemies? From your family?" "Yes," she shot back, eyes wide. "But I never wanted any of this." The street felt alive, each shadow looming like a hidden threat. And in that moment, out of nowhere, the sound of sirens wailed into the night, cutting through the chaos. Their dread deepened. Were they being hunted? Then, something unexpected happened. A black SUV screeched to a halt beside them, the passenger door swinging open. "Get in," a voice called from the car, harsh yet familiar. It was Mary, the woman from the diner. "Trust me," she urged, urgency bleeding from her words. James hesitated, looking at Anna. The worries etched on her face mirrored his own. "Is this another trap?" he asked, second-guessing everything. "It's the only way," she insisted. "I can explain everything if you just get in." Without another moment of thought, they dove into the car, slamming the door just as the thundering footsteps echoed behind them. The SUV roared to life, tires screeching as Mary sped away, the shadows of pursuers fading into the distance. "Now what?" James gasped, heart still pounding. Mary's eyes darted to the rearview mirror, tension written on her face. "You both need to listen. There's no time for questions." The urgency in her voice held weight. And then she revealed the most shocking twist of all. "You're not just connected by fate," she said, breath catching in her throat. "James, you're Anna's brother." "What?" The word ripped from James's mouth, disbelief washing over him like a cold wave. "What are you talking about?" "It's true," Mary said, her voice a desperate whisper. "Your fathers were intertwined in a way neither of you knew. You both share the same blood, the same legacy. This is about more than just your lives. It's a twisted family affair that could destroy you both." Time stopped. James felt the ground beneath him crumble, his whole world spinning. Anna turned pale, the color draining from her face as the implications crashed in waves. "No, this can't be," he murmured, gripping the edge of the seat, desperate to anchor himself. "That's impossible. I would have known. But before he could finish, the sound of shattering glass echoed from behind them. The SUV lurched as Mary swerved. "Hang on!" The night exploded with chaos again. Questions flooded James's mind. Truths he'd never wanted to consider. Was their connection something sinister? What truth had his father hidden? In the midst of it all, Anna reached for him, searching his eyes, tears pooling in her own. Is it true? Are we really? And all James could do was stare, heart pounding, mind racing. Everything he thought he knew cracked open, leaving a darkness more profound than the night outside. Did fate bind them together as enemies or allies? Could their lives intertwine in a way he never expected? The car sped into the unknown, stakes higher than ever. The revelations tangled them deeper as the night pulsed with uncertainty. The question lingered heavy in the air. What would it mean for their lives, now that brother and sister were caught in a storm far beyond their control? As the SUV raced down the slick city streets, James's heart pounded in rhythm with the chaos of the night. Anna sat beside him, her face pale and haunted as Mary focused on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every moment felt charged with tension, the kind that hung thick in the air. "Please," Mary urged, glancing at them, "you need to understand. This isn't just about survival anymore." "What do you mean?" James shot back, frustration bubbling. His mind was a storm, struggling to absorb the bombshell they'd just been handed. Mary took a deep breath, the weight of her revelations pressing down. "The truth about your father. There are reasons they're tied together. You two were part of a plan that started long before you were born." "What kind of plan?" Anna's voice trembled. "What are you saying, Mary?" Before she could answer, the SUV jolted to a sudden stop, tires screeching. Mary cursed under her breath, trying to regain control. The rearview mirror revealed haunting silhouettes, figures in dark clothing, closing in on them. "Stay low," she shouted, ducking her head as if it would shield them. James instinctively pulled Anna down beside him, panic consuming him as he scanned their surroundings. "Who are they?" he whispered, dread flooding his mind. "Enemies," Mary replied, her voice flat. "But we don't have time for that. Listen closely." Just then, the sound of shattering glass exploded in the air. A figure materialized outside the SUV, Jack. He was breathless, urgency filling his gaze as he pounded on the driver's window. "Get out!" he shouted, eyes wild. "They're here!" "Jack!" Mary cried, her voice laced with disbelief. "You shouldn't be here." "Too late!" He glanced behind him, then turned back. "This is the only way. Trust me." But just as he prepared to leap in, a hooded man surged forward, pushing Jack aside. The world shifted into chaos, the muffled sound of gunfire echoing as bright flashes lit up the night. In that instant, fear paralyzed James. He could barely process the raw panic as screams swallowed the night air. "Go!" Mary yelled. "We can't stay!" James shoved Anna down as bullets whizzed past, the tension sharp and biting. The SUV's engines roared back to life, and they burst into the fray, tires skidding on the slick asphalt as Mary tore away from the scene. Breathless moments ticked by. Mary drove fast, her focus razor-sharp, but still the atmosphere crackled with danger. "That was too close," she breathed. "We need to regroup. We need—" In the commotion, Anna suddenly turned to James, eyes wide with a new thought. "James, Mary said there were reasons we were tied together. What if it's not just about our fathers?" "What do you mean?" Before she could expand, Mary's phone blared. She glanced at the screen, face going stark. No, this can't be happening." Her fingers trembled as she pulled off the road into a desolate alley. "What is it?" James pushed. "It's them. They're tracking us," Mary said, panic lining her voice. "But there's one more thing you both need to know." Suddenly, the atmosphere felt heavy, thick with anticipation. They leaned in closer, ingesting the implications. "The truth about your identities. It's not what you think. There's a reason you two share so much. There's a truth buried deep, something so twisted that... She faltered, the weight of the words hanging heavy. And in that moment, as the shadows danced around them, Mary looked up, scared eyes locking onto theirs. "You're not just siblings. You're in fact twins." James's heart dropped. "What?" The word barely escaped his lips. His world crumbled again. More questions swirling in the air. "That's impossible. We don't look anything alike." "Genetic manipulation," Mary said, her voice trembling now. "Both your fathers worked together. You were created from their combined genetics. This was always intended." Shock rippled through James. Reality twisted around him like a wild storm. "You're lying," he said, voice shaking in disbelief. "This can't be real." "I wish I was," Mary whispered, silent tears streaming. "But it's the truth, James. You both were part of their grand designs." Every breath pulled tighter, despair clawing at his chest. Anna, frozen beside him, whispered, "What does it mean for us?" The question hung impossibly in the air, and just as clarity felt within reach, the heat of sirens blared from the distance, wailing and primal. Everything they thought they knew shattered again, leaving a gap the size of the universe. The mystery pulsed like a heartbeat, deep and unknowable, leaving them in the chilling embrace of uncertainty. What would their lives become now that everything flipped upside down? What tangled web had they walked into, and could they escape it? The car sat still, tension thick in the air. James stared at Mary, heart racing. "Twins? How can that be true?" "I didn't want to believe it either," she said, barely above a whisper. "Years of buried secrets and lies. Your father's." But before she could finish, the rear window shattered, sending glass raining down inside the car. A loud bang echoed, and James felt a surge of adrenaline. "Drive! Now!" he shouted, panic rising. Mary slammed her foot on the gas, the engine roaring to life. They jolted forward, the city blurring by again. "We're being hunted!" Anna cried, her voice trembling. "Who are these people? Why do they want us?" "They want you both, because of what your fathers planned," Mary shouted, glancing quickly at the rearview mirror. "They'll stop at nothing to—" Another crack echoed, and the car jolted as something slammed against the door. James turned to see Jack, his expression a mix of fear and determination, rushing alongside them, pounding on the window. "You can't leave me!" he yelled, eyes wild. "I can help you. Get in!" Mary shouted, their urgency pushing her to act. With a quick look between them, James leaned toward the window, horror mixing with desperation. "Hurry! Get in, Jack!" Jack dashed to the open door, tossing himself inside just as another bullet whizzed by. "Go, go, go!" he yelled, panic spilling out. Mary pulled away, swerving down an alley, but their escape was short-lived. The sound of sirens pierced the air, closing in from every direction. "They know where we are!" Jack shouted, his face pale as he crouched low. "This is all wrong." "What do you mean?" Anna asked, confusion etched across her face. "It's complicated. I'll explain later." Jack shot back, breathing heavily. But before he could continue, Mary glanced back and gasped, eyes wide as she slammed on the brakes. James whipped his head around. A block ahead, a large truck blocked the street, and figures began pouring out, clad in black from head to toe. They moved with a sheen of menace, the atmosphere crackling with danger. "What do we do?" James shouted, a lump forming in his throat. "Turn around," Mary called, but it was too late. The men swarmed the car, traps closing in. Jack whipped around, his expression shifting from urgency to something darker. "I'm sorry," he murmured, but the words felt heavy, foreboding. "Sorry? What are you talking about?" Anna asked, bewilderment and fear brewing in her eyes. "I never wanted this to happen," Jack said, voice shaking. "But those were lies I told to protect you. In the chaos, a grotesque smile crept across Jack's face as he turned towards the men, and James felt his heart plummet. "This is all part of the plan," he said, voice chillingly calm. "What? Jack, what plan?" James pressed, panic clawing at him. But before Jack could respond, a burly figure approached, the same one from the diner, eyes sharp and fierce. "You've done well, Jack," he said, his expression hard. "Now we can finish this." James recoiled. "Finish what?" "Baiting them." The man's voice was like cold steel. "You were all part of it. But now it's time to bring in the final act." Jack's calm demeanor faded slightly, horror dawning on him. No, you said we wouldn't hurt them." "Oh, but we didn't say they wouldn't suffer," the stranger replied, disdain curling his lips. James felt the ground shift beneath him. Everything he thought he understood was crumbling. "What does that mean?" The answer came as the men surged toward them, voices roaring in the chaos. Time unraveled, and everything exploded in a cacophony of shouts and blaring sirens. And then it hit him, the truth like a sledgehammer. Jack hadn't just stumbled into their lives. He was part of a cruel game, a pawn in the dark, twisted history bridging their families. In that moment, panic turned to rage. "You used us," James shouted, eyes blazing. "This was your plan all along." But as Jack's smirk faded and he braced himself against the door, the rush of men overtaking them, one thing became painfully clear. Their lives weren't just intertwined by fate. They were trapped in a web of treachery they couldn't escape. And as darkness descended, sealing their fates, a question lingered in the air. How would they survive the storm brewing just ahead? The car sat still, tension thick in the air. James stared at Mary, heart racing. "Twins? How can that be true?" "I didn't want to believe it either," she said, barely above a whisper. "Years of buried secrets and lies. Your father's." But before she could finish, the rear window shattered, sending glass raining down inside the car. A loud bang echoed, and James felt a surge of adrenaline. "Drive, now!" he shouted, panic rising. Mary slammed her foot on the gas, the engine roaring to life. They jolted forward, the city blurring by again. "We're being hunted!" Anna cried, her voice trembling. "Who are these people? Why do they want us?" "They want you both because of what your fathers planned," Mary shouted, glancing quickly at the rearview mirror. "They'll stop at nothing to—" Another crack echoed, and the car jolted as something slammed against the door. James turned to see Jack, his expression a mix of fear and determination, rushing alongside them, pounding on the window. "You can't leave me," he yelled, eyes wild. "Get in," Mary shouted, their urgency pushing her to act. With a quick look between them, James leaned toward the window, horror mixing with desperation. "Hurry, get in, Jack!" Jack dashed to the open door, tossing himself inside just as another bullet whizzed past. "Go, go, go!" he yelled, panic spilling out. Mary pulled away, swerving down an alley, but their escape was short-lived. The sound of sirens pierced the air, closing in from every direction. "They know where we are," Jack shouted, his face pale as he crouched low. "What do we do?" James shouted, a lump forming in his throat. "Turn around," Mary called. But it was too late. The men swarmed the car, traps closing in. Jack whipped around, his expression shifting from urgency to something darker. "I'm sorry," he murmured, but the words felt heavy, foreboding. "Sorry? What are you talking about?" Anna asked, bewilderment and fear brewing in her eyes. "I never wanted this to happen," Jack said, voice shaking. But before Jack could respond, a burly figure approached, the same one from the diner, eyes sharp and fierce. "You've done well, Jack," he said, his expression hard. "Now we can finish this." James recoiled. "Finish what?" "Baiting them." The man's voice was like cold steel. "You were all part of it. But now, it's time to bring in the final act." James felt the ground shift beneath him. Everything he thought he understood was crumbling. What does that mean? The answer came as the men surged toward them, voices roaring in the chaos. Time unraveled, and everything exploded in a cacophony of shouts and blaring sirens. And then it hit him, the truth like a sledgehammer. Jack hadn't just stumbled into their lives. He was part of a cruel game, a pawn in the dark, twisted history bridging their families. In that moment, panic turned to rage. "You used us," James shouted, eyes blazing. "This was your plan all along." But as Jack's smirk faded and he braced himself against the door, the rush of men overtaking them, one thing became painfully clear. Their lives weren't just intertwined by fate. They were trapped in a web of treachery they couldn't escape. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shook. An explosion resonated from behind, sending a shockwave that rocked the SUV. "What the hell was that?" Mary cried, eyes wide. Jack's face turned ashen. "No, they shouldn't have." Before he could finish, another explosion lit the night, and debris rained down like confetti from hell. James's heart sank. What is happening? Through the chaos, a massive black truck came barreling through the debris, plowing down everything in its path. The men scrambled backward, and Mary swerved the vehicle, narrowly missing the wreckage. But in an instant, everything changed. The truck's driver slammed into the nearest group of attackers, scattering them like leaves. And just as quickly, the truck driver's door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow. James squinted through the smoke and dust. "Who is that?" Are they helping us?" Anna whispered, hope mingling with disbelief. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. Surprise! It was their father, James's and Anna's father, standing there, eyes ablaze with something sinister. "Dad?" James's voice was a shocked whisper. "You?" "Can't let you kids die just yet," he said, a twisted grin spreading across his face. "Did you really think I'd let you walk into history without a little intervention?" James's mind spun. Everything he thought he knew crashed down like the rubble around them. "You orchestrated this?" he spat, rage boiling. "You put us in danger." "Danger?" he laughed, the sound chilling. "This is nothing. You're about to inherit a legacy you can't even begin to fathom." A deafening silence enveloped the group. James gaped, heart racing in disbelief. Suddenly, their past turned dark and ugly, revealing secrets they never imagined. The truck rumbled, the shadows shifting around them, and they were left questioning everything, including the man who had always been just a memory. And as confusion swallowed him, James turned to Anna, both terrified and exhilarated. "What does this mean for us?" The question lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty. The truth was clawing its way out, and even the shadows didn't have answers as darkness closed in around them like a tightening noose. James felt his heart hammering in his chest as he looked at his father, the man he barely knew. "You?" It was disbelief flooding his words. The reality hit hard. "Surprise," his father said with a smirk, but it wasn't the joy of a reunion. It was something darker, almost chilling. "Everything has been set in motion. You both are the key to everything." Anna sat frozen next to him, confusion gripping her features. "What do you mean? Why are you doing this?" "Because it's time to unveil the truth." His father's laughter echoed, cruel and twisted. "You two, you're not just twins. You're the culmination of a long-standing legacy, one that was never meant to be hidden away." From the shadows, a figure moved. One of the men from the truck, tall and imposing, stood beside their father. He leaned in, filling the car with the scent of leather and smoke. "The clock's ticking. We don't have much time before the others find you." "Others?" James felt the cold grip of dread. Who? In that moment, the ground shook again. The explosion echoed through the street, shaking the very air around them. A flash of light erupted behind them as another fiery blast lit the night, casting monstrous shadows against the walls. James barely had a moment to reflect before his father turned back to them, his face somehow gleeful in the chaos. "It's all been planned to bring you here. You think random violence just happens? No, this is but a step, a sacred right to reclaim what was taken from us." "What the hell are you talking about?" James shouted, his heart racing. "You never said any of this." "That's because you needed to see the impact of legacy." He gestured wildly. "Only now, only when threatened can the truth rise." Panic stabbed at James as he slammed a fist against the seat. "This is insane. What type of legacy costs lives? It's the price of power, son," his father shot back, his tone sharp and unwavering. "And you'll soon understand what it means to embrace it." Suddenly, the door of the SUV blasted open. A well-dressed man, face tight with urgency, shouted, "Get out, now!" The chaos multiplied. "Who's that?" Anna screamed, eyes darting to James. "Family, too," his father shouted, rising angrily. "We don't have time to—" "Enough!" the man's voice boomed, forcing everyone's gaze. "You've lied too long. They deserve to know the truth." The air thickened, suffocating in tension. Anna caught her breath. "What truth?" The well-dressed man stepped closer, eyes blazing. "You're not just pawns. You hold more than you realize. But there's more to this, much more." She turned to James, her face dropping, realization dawning. "James, what if our fathers weren't just enemies? What if they were part of something much bigger than either of us could understand?" Before he could respond, the man reached into his coat and pulled out an old, weathered piece of paper. "This is where it all began," he said, voice trembling but strong. "The contracts, the betrayals, everything." James felt a chill run down his spine. The paper fluttered in the wind, revealing names. Names of their fathers intertwined in ink, bound by blood and secrets. This can't be right," he whispered, feeling the world tilt. But then came the twist. "Your fathers weren't enemies," the man continued, and everyone held their breath. "They were brothers. Both of you are heirs to a power struggle that runs deeper than lineage. You're not just twins. You're the sole heirs to a legacy twisted by greed and jealousy." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. James's mind raced, trying to process the bombshell. Brother and sister, yes, but to add more weight, heir to something dark? What would that mean? And just as the realization crashed in, a voice shattered the moment. A cold, commanding presence echoed through the dark. "So this is where you hid them." A woman stepped forward, eyes piercing. Her expression held the weight of 1,000 secrets. "I've come to collect what's mine," she declared, voice smooth as silk, yet laced with danger. The implications twisted in James's stomach like metal. Was she friend or foe? And just like that, the stakes climbed higher. Relationships buckled and broke as the truth twisted its sharp edges around their throats. In that moment, everything shifted, leaving them shattered and gasping, scrambling to understand a future that now felt impossibly dark. And standing in that overwhelming light of revelation, the air buzzed with tension. What would become of them now? How deep did the darkness run? How would they ever navigate the chaos that now hung over their heads like a looming storm? All they could do was wait and hope, but hope felt thin against the tide of fate that pulled them deeper into the abyss. The air hung heavy with silence as the woman stepped forward, her presence dominating. James felt a chill run through him, confusion twisting into fear. "Who are you?" he demanded, trying to find his voice amid the chaos. The woman smirked, eyes gleaming with a dark light. "You'll know soon enough," she said, her voice smooth but laced with malice. "But first, it's time the truth came out." Suddenly, she pulled a small device from her pocket. With a flick of her thumb, a holographic image burst to life in the air between them. It flickered for a moment, then solidified into a familiar face. It was James's father, but younger, eyes filled with youthful ambition and darkness. A nudge inside his gut told him this wasn't just a casual family photo. "Years ago, your fathers made a pact," she continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "They thought they could play God, but they were just pawns, and so are you." "What do you mean?" Anna asked, her voice trembling, confusion spilling across her features. Instead of answering, the woman pressed a button. The hologram changed, revealing grainy footage from a dimly lit room. In it, men surrounded a table filled with papers and large, ornate boxes. Yelling filled the air. Accusations flew between them like daggers, louder and louder, until one man slammed his fist down. "You will regret this betrayal," he shouted, and the screen fizzled out. James's heart raced. "What the hell was that?" "That's just the tip of the iceberg," the woman said. "You need to understand, this was never about you two. This was always about your father's greed." Before James could respond, laughter erupted from nearby. Jack's face twisted, his expression shifting from fear to delight. "You think they're innocent? You're just as guilty as them, both of you." A lump formed in James's throat. "What are you saying?" But Jack didn't respond. The air in the car shifted, thickening with tension. "Do you hear that?" Mary asked suddenly, eyes wide and scanning the room. A low rumble echoed, followed by a sense of impending dread. Then, as if the universe had aligned, the ground shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. The SUV rocked wildly. "Stay down!" Mary shouted, gripping the wheel. But it was too late. The entire world erupted. A blinding flash of light filled the darkness, and everything exploded outward. A deafening bang that swallowed all sound. When the chaos finally settled, James found himself lying on the pavement outside the wreckage of the SUV, eyes blinking against the blinding light. The air was thick with dust, the scent of burning rubber wafting up. Confusion reigned as he tried to gather his thoughts. "Anna!" he yelled, but his voice sounded distant, swallowed by the chaos. "Over here!" she screamed back, her voice trembling. He stumbled toward her, heart pounding in his chest. As he reached her, his heart sank. Anna lay crumpled beside him, a shadow hovering over her. The woman stood tall, a wicked smile playing on her lips, showing sheer delight as she looked down upon them. "Welcome back to reality," she said, her voice chilling. All at once, James understood. His breath caught in his throat. You were behind this." And just as the truth hit him, the slippery strands of fate collapsing around him, he felt another tremor, and a split second later, every light dimmed. Darkness enveloped him like a shroud. When he snapped back to consciousness, the world felt different. Anna was gone. The woman, once so bold, was now nowhere to be found. Desperation clawed at his chest. "Where is she?" he shouted into the void. But no answer came. And then, like a wave crashing over him, realization washed over his mind. There were whispers of secrets yet to unravel. Who was the woman? What price had they all paid? Everything they thought they knew shattered like glass, leaving only fragments of a truth that teased the edges of understanding. "What have you done?" he whispered, fear tightening around his heart. Then it hit him hard. There was more to this than just revenge or legacy. It was about survival. But as the weight of that realization settled over him, the night remained dark and empty. A chill slid down his spine as he understood the stakes had changed irrevocably. What would he do now? The journey ahead blurred with uncertainty, leaving only one burning question shining through the fog. Could he find his sister and uncover the truth before it was too late? The darkness surrounded James like a thick blanket, confusion swirling in his mind. He shook his head, disbelief washing over him like a cold wave. The wreckage of the SUV loomed nearby, smoke rising from the twisted metal. But the real wreckage lay in the truth he had just uncovered. His heart pounded as he searched the debris around him for Anna. "Anna, where are you?" Silence stretched like a taut rope, fear gripping his chest. He could feel the heat of chaos accumulating. The street was a battlefield, scattered with debris and sirensy. A shadow flickered in the corner of his vision. James turned, adrenaline surging, and his heart raced. He dashed toward the sound, legs moving as if on instinct. "Anna!" There she was, crouched by a pile of rubble, her eyes wide with fear, and water streaming down her dirt-streaked cheeks. James rushed to her, relief flooding him. "Are you okay?" The words came out like a plea. She nodded slightly, trembling, but it wasn't enough. "What did she want?" Anna's voice cracked. "What are we supposed to do now?" "I don't know," James admitted, the weight of uncertainty heavy on his chest. "But we'll figure it out, together." Crack! A loud noise snapped their focus. Shadows moved around them, menacing figures emerging from the smoke. James felt a sharp pang of fear. "We need to go, now!" He grabbed Anna's hand, pulling her to her feet. They sprinted away, dodging debris and desperate shouts. James felt the pulse of the city quicken around them, the heart of New York thrumming like a battle drum. "This way," he shouted, leading Anna through a narrow alley. Just then, a familiar voice broke through the din. Jack, panting, bloodied but unbroken, emerged from the fog. "You made it," he yelled, rushing toward them. "We need to stick together. They're closing in." "Who are they?" Anna asked, breathless dread echoing in her voice. "I don't know, but they want you both because of your legacy." Jack gasped, glancing back like a hunted animal. "We have to warn your father about her." Anger flared within James at the mention of their father. "You think he'll help us after everything? That man will do anything to protect you," Jack interrupted. "We have to trust him." With no time to debate, they took off again, weaving through the streets. With each step, the echoes of chaos subsided into a low rumble behind them. Relief felt closer than ever. Suddenly, the night lit up, and at the end of the alley was their father, standing by an unmarked van, urgency etched across his face. "Get in," he shouted, fear mingling with determination. "We don't have time." They jumped into the van, and he slammed the door shut, the sound of chaos fading as they sped off. James felt the weight lift just a little. "Where's Anna?" he shouted, turning back to check on her. "I'm right here," she said, barely above a whisper, trembling. "Listen," their father said, voice steady. "There are things you need to know. The woman, she's part of a bigger picture. You both are caught in the crosshairs of a legacy that's not just your burden, but your opportunity." But Anna shook her head. "What do you mean by opportunity?" "Because this is your chance to reclaim what was lost, to take back control," he replied, gaze fierce. "You both must learn to fight together." As the van skidded around a corner, James felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. Could they really confront the past? Could they rewrite the future? The world felt like it was teetering on the edge. Suddenly, the van's engine roared violently, and they skidded to a halt. Their father turned to them, words hanging heavy in the air. "Whatever happens, stick together. Trust each other." But before they could respond, the back door flung open with a crash. Dark figures swarmed in, faces masked, shadows eclipsing the light. A chilling laugh echoed through the night, sending shivers down James's spine. And as he looked at Anna, a realization hit him hard. This was just the beginning. They were on the cusp of a battle, drifting through the vast unknown. But this time, they wouldn't run. Together they would face whatever came next. The fight for their future had just begun. Now, you must subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and keep us going strong. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. What do you think will happen next for James and Anna? And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this ending. True fans like you understand the